Hello everyone. Thought I'd make a quick video today. So, as might be the case with most videos, it would help if you like or dislike and subscribe. It just helps with channel content and all that, getting more views and all that. As for why, I think I'd like to contribute more time and energy to the channel. There really isn't really many channels dedicated to Star Wars CCG, but especially from a collector's standpoint, because for a while the card game was primarily kept alive by the players. Collectability, as far as the costs and all that, went down to pretty low after the loss of the license from Decipher back in the early 2000s, and it's been kind of resurging recently with the general rise of collectibles as the world descends into chaos. But I'd kind of like to share my 2 cents just to help would-be viewers out there decide kind of what might be a good use of their energy and time and money, therefore, when they're getting back into Star Wars CCG. I guess that's where I'll start off, is a lot of collectability now is, I mean, it always has been and always will be, seems to be intrinsically tied to monetary gain, especially in Pokemon. Like, right now, early in January 2021, you go to your local Target, probably other places, that's what we have here is a Target, and I go there and they're just completely sold out of Pokemon cards every time I go. And for myself, it doesn't really affect me much because I would just be getting them for my kids, and I can just buy booster boxes online. That's what I've been doing. They're pretty young. They just like opening packs. They don't need like the newest sets and all that. Although I may start pre-ordering a box just to have it for them. Anyhow, a lot of people are buying boxes of sealed products, particularly of Pokemon, especially modern, all that sort of stuff, with the intention of holding them and having it go up in value over time. And I know this is something that, say, Rudy from Alpha Investments points out, and they may go up over time, even if they are overprinted. I don't know, it's hard to say because some of it is so overprinted. It'll probably go up in value until it doesn't. I don't know. I don't really want to speculate on that because I think that's what a lot of this modern product really fundamentally is speculation, and I can get into that maybe in a future video on what I mean by that, because in some ways everything is really speculation because everything is worth what someone's willing to pay for it, right? But with something like, say, a price of a barrel of oil, right, that goes up and down, but it's tied in by a bunch of checks and balances. Like if the price of oil were to 10x overnight, it would affect a bunch of industries, right? You would feel it at the fuel pump. It would affect cost of delivery because it would affect everything along there, cost of plastics, you name it, energy. It would affect a whole bunch of processes. But say if the price of your Charizard went up by 10 times, I mean, now people can't get Charizards, but apart from that, like, it might ripple out a little bit into other collectibles, but it's much more self-contained. So likewise, with this modern sealed Pokemon product, it's worth a lot while people are paying attention to it, and they certainly are. If you go to the local Target near us, like, there's just nothing in stock. So that'll be like that until it's not, and that's what'll be interesting, is eventually something will capture the attention of kind of this general crowd that is in it primarily to make money, if we're being honest with ourselves, and they're being honest with themselves, because I mean, do they really enjoy the cards that much of one of the, I don't know, is it 70, 60 different Pokemon releases? Like, do they really like the modern one enough that they're buying it because they like the cards in them that much? I doubt it. So eventually, something else will come along and capture their attention. Or maybe just a few of them, and they're like, okay, maybe I'll sell out a few of these. But it's not just them, we're not that unique, so other people will probably think likewise. Maybe something else will become the flavor of the month, and they'll want to sell out of that a little bit, and it could cause, you know, prices to come down a little bit. I don't know. We'll see. But anyways, let's get back to Star Wars CCG. Um, so I have a few different topics I was going to cover. First of all was going to be foil cards. And by that, so I'm not talking about the Japanese cards because they're a little bit of a different case. I'll talk about that next. But with foil cards, historically, meaning in the last 20 years, foils have often been priced less than their non-foil counterparts, and that's primarily because when playing with them, they can have a little bit of a curve to them, so the non-foils are typically more desirable for playing. What I suspect will happen if trends continue as I think they will, namely prices increasing as kind of collectability of this very vintage out of print game continue. I suspect the foils were actually printed less than the non-foil counterparts of cards if you crunch the numbers, and people just like shiny things. So for those two reasons, I suspect that foil prices will increase compared to their non-foil counterparts. So just an FYI, if you're getting back into collecting, that's what I'm doing. I'm focusing more on the foil cards, but that's just my opinion for those reasons, especially the shiny thing, because people like shiny things, and that's always been the case in human history. And then they're also rarer. Like, people just kind of assume that shiny versions are worth more than the non-shiny counterparts, even if they were rarer. Like, for example, some of the Reflections 3 AI foils compared to their non-foil counterparts. It's very difficult to say which will be worth more eventually, right? Because maybe the non-foils are actually rarer. I don't know. That'll be really interesting to see what happens there. That's one case, along with the Japanese, where the non-foils could be worth more, but with the AI ones, I would be surprised if foils still end up being worth more because people like shiny things. Now, another interesting counterpoint, or not counterpoint, rather, just a point, the Japanese cards. So, for those who don't know, for the first 3 sets of Star Wars CCGs, that'd be Premiere, A New Hope, and Hoth, there were actually Japanese cards that were released in what most people suspect are fairly limited numbers. So the Japanese version of cards are much more expensive than the English counterparts. So on one hand, one could make the argument that since they're so scarce, these cards, let's say they all go up in value, everything on Star Wars CCG goes up in value across the board, would you have been better off buying Japanese cards, or would you have been better off buying the English ones with that same amount of money? Let's say I gave you $1,000 and you're like, okay, you can put this in the Japanese cards or English cards or whatever in Premiere. Would you buy like a Japanese Vader, or would you buy with that same money like 10 English Vaders? Due to how scarce they are. But see, there's another thing that confounds this a little bit too, is Japanese cards in general have been kept in much better condition than the English cards because they're primarily the realm of collectors, so I suspect in general they're going to be in better condition, but there are many fewer of them. If you go by the original print numbers, English cards, I suspect there's like, 200 to 300,000 Darth Vaders originally printed, if I recall, or maybe that was how many boxes that were printed, in which case it would be much less than that, maybe like 50,000. And much of them have been played over the years, so I don't know. I don't have a great answer, but comparing it to Pokemon, there are a couple fundamental differences in that, one, Star Wars is a fundamentally American product as opposed to Pokemon, which is a Japanese product. So it's not, when you're collecting a Japanese Star Wars card, you're not collecting the original. It's just a variant. I suspect that could impact prices, but I'm not sure how. Like, I just think it would limit a little bit. Like, if it were something else, like, say, the tournament foils, like Imperial Class Star Destroyer and Corellian Corvette, I suspect those will go up quite a bit in price. The Japanese will probably still have a premium. I just don't know. Because I can even read some of the Japanese, which a lot of people can't, and I still just don't. Because when I collected it, like, it was never something I really cared that much about. Not that I even cared, but it's just like, okay, Japanese Darth Vader is kind of expensive, but it never was something I really wanted that badly. And as I suspect as the prices increase and it draws more attention and more potential collectors, right? Like, hold on, sorry, I think my video might be frozen. I'm not sure. Hold on. Let's see if I can fix that. Alright, there we go. Okay, so as that happens and the attention comes back, everything would go across the board. I don't really know. That's one thing I can't predict. It could go up a lot, but I could also see that limiting it in a way that Pokemon isn't, just because it's not the original language of the product. Yeah, I have a few more topics, but I'll go into that in another video. Anyways, just some thoughts that, foil cards, in my opinion, are undervalued, especially like Reflections 1. They seem to be abundant, but I don't know, I still feel they're undervalued because people like shiny things relative to what kind of people kind of thought about them in the past. Because if you think about how many Star Wars collectors there really are out there, even if there seem to be a lot of foils, it's because the amount of collectors right now that are interested in Star Wars CG are really small. And if it were to gain the sort of following that Pokemon had, I mean, Pokemon interest can be distributed over so many sets, but there's only like, I don't know, 15 sets of Star Wars ECG, and they've all been out of print for 20 years, so like, it'd be basically like if Pokemon WotC was all that existed. So if interest keeps picking up, supply can get dwindled really fast and price can shoot up really fast these days, as we've seen with social media. Anyhow, stay safe, you guys, and take care, everyone.